Hello, my dear listeners. I'm Anna, and tonight I want to carry you away on silken currents to a place that has woven itself into the very fabric of my dreams. We're journeying together to Maui, Hawaii, where jade green valleys cradle secrets older than memory, and the whispered songs of trade winds tell stories that only the soul can understand. I've walked these paths where volcanic sand shifts like crushed diamonds beneath bare feet, and I've listened to the ancient chanting of waves that never truly rest. Each time I return to this island sanctuary, whether in body or in spirit, I discover something new waiting in the amber golden light that spills across its sacred landscapes. So settle deeply now, dear ones. Let your breathing slow and your thoughts drift like petals on warm ocean currents. Can you imagine what it might feel like to stand where the earth itself was born from fire, where every breath carries the essence of flowers that bloom only in paradise? The morning light here in Maui arrives like liquid honey, painting the eastern sky in shades of coral and pearl that have no names in ordinary language. I invite you to walk with me along this ancient shoreline, where crystalline waters lap against obsidian rocks worn smooth by centuries of patient caresses. The sand beneath our feet shifts from charcoal black to silver, each grain catching the early sunlight like tiny mirrors scattered by generous gods. Behind us, the island rises in emerald waves of tropical forest, where kukui trees stand sentinel with their silvery leaves whispering secrets to the dawn. The air here carries weight and substance, thick with moisture that kisses your skin like the gentlest of veils. It wraps around you with warmth that penetrates deeper than mere temperature, settling into your bones with the comfort of an eternal embrace. Listen now to the symphony that surrounds us. The rhythmic breathing of the Pacific creates a bass note, so deep it becomes part of your heartbeat, while smaller waves tinkle like wind chimes made of liquid crystal. Somewhere in the distance, a mina bird calls with notes that tumble like scattered pearls, and palm fronds rustle overhead with the sound of gentle rain on silk. The fragrance of this place shifts and dances with each breath you take. Plumeria blossoms release their creamy sweetness into the salt-tinged air, while beneath that floral symphony, the green scent of growing things mingles with something deeper, the mineral richness of volcanic soil that has nurtured life for millennia. Occasionally, a hint of sandalwood drifts past, warm and mysterious, carried on breezes that have traveled across thousands of miles of open ocean. We move now away from the shore, following a path that winds upward through groves of ironwood trees. Their needle-like leaves create a canopy above us that filters the strengthening sunlight into patterns of gold and shadow that shift and dance with hypnotic grace. The ground here feels different, softer, more yielding, carpeted with fallen leaves that release tiny puffs of earth-scented air. With each footstep, the temperature begins to shift as we climb higher, the humid embrace of the shoreline giving way to something cooler, fresher. Here, the trade winds move with more purpose, carrying the green scents of fern and moss, the sweet decay of fallen fruit, and something else, something wild and untamable that speaks of places where human feet rarely tread. Through gaps in the foliage, glimpses of the island spread below us like a living map painted in impossible hues. The ocean stretches endlessly outward, its surface painted in layers of turquoise, sapphire, and deep indigo that shift and blend like watercolors on wet paper. Nearer to shore, the water becomes so clear it seems like liquid air, revealing coral gardens that bloom in sunset colors beneath the surface. The path curves gently, leading us through a grove of bamboo where the light takes on an ethereal, green-tinged quality. The stalks rise around us like the pillars of a natural cathedral, their surfaces smooth as polished jade. When the wind moves through them, they create music unlike anything else on earth. A gentle percussion that resonates in your chest, accompanied by the whispered conversations of leaves high above. The air here feels different against your skin, cooler and somehow lighter, carrying scents of rain-washed stone and the green breath of countless plants. Each inhalation brings something new. Now the honeyed sweetness of wild ginger, now the sharp brightness of eucalyptus, now the mysterious musk of flowers that bloom only in shadow. As we emerge from the bamboo grove, the landscape opens before us into a vast crater where ancient volcanic forces once shaped the very bones of the earth. The walls rise around us in cathedral proportions, painted in layers of rust and gold, deep purple and silver gray. A geological tapestry that tells the story of creation itself. The silence within this ancient caldera feels profound and sacred, broken only by the distant trill of a white-tailed tropic bird circling high above the rim. Your footsteps echo softly against the curved walls, each sound returning to you transformed, mellowed by the vast space that cradles us. The ground here tells a different story than the paths we've traveled, composed of fine cinders that compress gently underfoot, releasing tiny whispers with each step we take deeper into this geological sanctuary. Moisture gathers in hidden pockets within this natural amphitheater, creating microclimates where rare native plants flourish in quiet splendor. Delicate mamming trees dot the crater floor, their yellow pea-like flowers adding splashes of sunshine against the muted earth tones. The fragrance they release differs entirely from the coastal blooms, drier, more subtle, an almost medicinal clarity that seems to purify each breath. Temperature fluctuations ripple through the air in gentle waves, warm pockets alternating with cooler drafts that carry the essence of hidden springs and damp earth. These thermal currents brush against your arms and face like invisible scarves, each one bearing its own unique bouquet of scents gathered from different corners of this vast bowl. Moving toward the crater's center, we encounter pools of rainwater that have collected in natural depressions, their surfaces acting as mirrors for the sky above. The water feels surprisingly warm when you trail your fingers through it, heated by dark volcanic rock that stores and releases the sun's energy throughout the day. Ripples spread outward in perfect concentric circles, distorting the reflected clouds into impressionist paintings that shift and reform with mesmerizing rhythm. Native Hawaiian sage grows in scattered clusters nearby, its fuzzy silver-green leaves releasing a camphor-like aroma when brushed by the wandering breezes. The scent mingles with the metallic tang of mineral-rich soil and the faint ozone smell that precedes the afternoon rain clouds gathering along the crater's eastern rim. We follow a barely visible trail that indigenous people once used to traverse this sacred space, worn smooth by countless generations of bare feet. The path leads us past formations of twisted lava rock that have been sculpted by wind and weather into organic sculptures, some resembling sleeping giants, others twisted into spirals that seem to capture motion itself in stone. Here, in the shelter of a particularly large rock formation, tiny succulents have taken root in crevices barely wide enough to hold soil. Their waxy leaves store precious moisture, and some display flowers no larger than dewdrops, brilliant magenta, and electric yellow blooms that seem to glow with their own internal light against the subdued backdrop. The acoustics shift as we move through different areas of the crater. In some spots, even whispered words carry clearly across impossible distances, while other locations seem to absorb sound completely, wrapping us in cocoons of perfect quiet. Bird calls bounce and echo in unexpected ways, creating natural harmonies as notes overlay and blend with their own reverberations. A family of Neen geese, Hawaii's state bird, graze peacefully in a patch of native grass, their soft honking calls adding a gentle domestic note to the wild symphony. They move with unhurried grace, necks extended as they search for seeds and tender shoots, occasionally lifting their heads to regard us with curious but unafraid dark eyes. The western wall of the crater now catches and concentrates the afternoon light, creating a warm glow that transforms the volcanic rock into something resembling burnished copper. Shadows pool in the deeper recesses, purple and blue-black, offering cool refuges that contrast beautifully with the sun-warmed surfaces. Threading through this landscape, we discover a series of natural caves worn into the crater walls by ancient water flows. The entrances exhale cool, damp air that carries scents of wet stone and something indefinably old, the smell of deep time itself. The darkness beyond these openings feels welcoming rather than forbidding, as if these spaces hold stories waiting patiently to be discovered. Native tree ferns unfurl their delicate fronds in these shadowy recesses, creating miniature forests within forests. Their leaves catch and channel the slightest moisture, creating tiny waterfalls that trickle down stone faces with sounds like distant rain. The humidity around these secret gardens feels different on your skin, more concentrated, almost tangible, like breathing liquid silk. As afternoon deepens toward evening, the light within the crater begins its slow transformation. Golden tones gradually shift toward amber, then deepen into rich orange and salmon hues that paint every surface with warmth. The temperature differential between sunny and shaded areas becomes more pronounced, creating stronger air currents that rustle through the sparse vegetation with increasing intensity. High above us, thin wisps of cloud begin to form where the trade winds meet the heated air rising from the crater floor. These ephemeral formations drift and dissolve in endless cycles, occasionally casting moving shadows that race across the landscape like playful spirits. The interplay of light and shadow creates an ever-changing tapestry that transforms familiar rock formations into new and magical shapes. Native ohia trees, their red bottlebrush flowers long since faded, rustle with a sound distinctly different from the bamboo we encountered earlier, drier, more percussive, like gentle applause from countless small hands. Their bark feels rough beneath exploring fingertips, deeply furrowed and rich with the accumulated wisdom of decades spent in this harsh but beautiful environment. The evening air carries new fragrances as cooler temperatures release volatile oils from various plants. Wild mint grows in surprising abundance near seepage areas, its sharp brightness contrasting beautifully with earthier base notes of decomposing vegetation and sun-warmed stone. Somewhere in the gathering dusk, the haunting call of a Hawaiian petrel drifts down from the crater rim, its voice threading through the cooling air like a silver needle, pulling dreams through fabric. The sound awakens something primal within this ancient space, as if the very stones remember when such calls filled skies above seas that stretched unbroken to horizons beyond imagination. Our path now leads us toward a hidden waterfall that tumbles from a spring nestled deep within the crater's northern wall. The sound reaches us long before we see the water itself, not the thunderous roar of massive cascades, but something more intimate and personal, like nature humming a lullaby to herself in private moments. Each droplet strikes stone with crystalline precision, creating a percussion ensemble of tiny bells that ring in harmonies too complex for human composition. The approach to this secret cascade reveals itself gradually, teasing us with glimpses of moisture-darkened rock and the increasingly rich scent of wet earth mixed with something sweeter. The breath of water-loving plants that thrive nowhere else on the island. Delicate maidenhair ferns cascade down the cliff face like frozen waterfalls of green lace, their impossibly thin stems trembling with each passing breeze. Here, where mist from the falling water creates its own microclimate, endemic violets bloom in shades of purple, so deep they seem to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their petals feel like velvet when touched, and they release a fragrance both familiar and exotic. Violet with undertones of vanilla, and something faintly spicy that tingles in the back of your throat when inhaled deeply. The rocks surrounding the waterfall's pool were coats of emerald moss so thick and soft they invite bare feet to explore their spongy surfaces. Each step releases tiny puffs of spores that dance in the slanting light like microscopic fairies, and the sensation underfoot suggests walking on clouds that have somehow solidified just enough to support your weight. Steam rises where sun-heated stone meets the cool spray, creating ephemeral sculptures of vapor that twist and dissipate before your eyes can fully comprehend their fleeting beauty. These ghostly forms carry scents upward in spirals. Now the green breath of algae thriving in the shallows. Now the mineral essence of deep volcanic springs. Now something indefinably oceanic that speaks of underground connections to the vast Pacific surrounding us. Native Hawaiian cotton plants grow in unexpected abundance here, their soft white bowls glowing like captured moonbeams in the diminishing light. When touched, they release fibers that float on the slightest air movement, drifting lazily through the mist like tiny prayer flags, carrying wishes to whatever gods might dwell within this sacred crater. The water itself tastes different from any you've ever encountered. Impossibly pure yet complex, carrying flavors of the deep earth through which it has filtered for countless years before emerging into daylight. It holds a slight effervescence, as if tiny bubbles of ancient air have been trapped within its molecular structure, waiting eons for the moment of release against your tongue. Twilight deepens around us with tropical suddenness, transforming the crater into something even more mysterious and enchanting. Colors that seemed muted in full daylight now glow with inner fire. The burgundy of alley shrubs intensifies to wine-dark richness, while patches of native bunch grass shimmer like spun gold in the dying light. Night-blooming cereus vines, invisible during daylight hours, begin their magical transformation as darkness approaches. Their buds, tight and unremarkable throughout the day, slowly unfurl petals of pristine white that seem to generate their own luminescence. The fragrance they release differs entirely from daytime blooms. Heavier, more intoxicating, with notes of jasmine and gardenia woven through something wilder and more untamed as stars begin to pierce the darkening sky above the crater rim. Bioluminescent fungi hidden within rotting logs start their own gentle light show. These tiny organisms pulse with blue-green radiance, creating fairy rings and glowing trails that transform fallen trees into enchanted pathways leading deeper into the night's mysteries. The temperature drops with surprising gentleness. The heat stored in volcanic rock radiating upward in invisible waves that caress your skin with phantom warmth. This thermal embrace mingles with cooling air flowing down from the crater walls, creating currents that carry new combinations of fragrance. Now, the resinous sweetness of koa trees, now the medicinal sharpness of native sedges, now the honey-rich perfume of moonflower vines that bloom only in darkness. Somewhere in the shadows, a Hawaiian hoary bat flutters past on wings so silent they seem to move through a medium thicker than air. Its presence registers more as a subtle shift in the evening's rhythm than a sound or sight, a reminder that even in this seemingly empty landscape, life continues its ancient cycles in forms both seen and unseen. The path leads us now toward the crater's southern edge, where ancient lava flows created terraces that step down toward depths hidden in purple shadow. Each level holds its own collection of specialized plants, adapted to the specific conditions of elevation, drainage, and exposure. Botanical communities that exist nowhere else on Earth. Here grows the rare Maui silversword, its rosette of silvery leaves catching and reflecting starlight like a terrestrial constellation. The plant feels surprisingly warm to the touch, its specialized structure designed to capture and retain heat during the cool hours when temperatures drop toward uncomfortable levels. Running your fingers across its surface produces a sensation like touching liquid mercury frozen in organic form. Night-flying moths begin their evening ballet around these unusual plants, their wings catching flashes of starlight as they navigate between blooms visible only to their specialized senses. Their flight patterns seem random yet purposeful, creating invisible trails through the air that that speak of connections and relationships beyond human understanding. The sounds of night in this elevated sanctuary differ markedly from the coastal symphony we left behind hours ago. Here, silence holds more weight and substance, broken only by the distant whisper of wind across stone, the barely audible trickle of hidden springs, and occasionally the soft call of some nocturnal creature whose voice seems to emerge from the darkness itself rather than from any identifiable source. Above us, the Milky Way begins its nightly revelation, stars appearing with tropical suddenness in numbers that overwhelm eyes accustomed to light-polluted skies. The galaxy's river of light flows directly overhead, so brilliant and detailed it seems close enough to touch, as if the crater exists at the intersection between Earth and infinite space. Cool air now flows steadily down from the heights, carrying scents of thin atmosphere and starlight, mixing with the warmer fragrances still rising from the sun-baked floor of this ancient caldera. Your breath becomes visible in tiny puffs that dissipate quickly into the crystalline air, each exhalation joining the eternal circulation of moisture that connects all living things within this island paradise. Native Hawaiian chants seem to rise from the very stones beneath our feet, though no human voice carries them now. Only the memory held within this consecrated ground, where generations of islanders once gathered to honor the mountain spirits. These phantom melodies weave through the cooling air like gossamer threads, harmonizing with frequencies so low they register in your chest rather than your ears. We descend now along a ridge that Hawaiian ancestors carved by hand, their work so perfectly integrated with natural contours that stone steps appear to have grown from the mountain itself. Each footfall connects you to thousands who walked this same path, their presence lingering in the smooth depressions worn by countless journeys toward the crater's hidden heart. Moonflowers unfold their trumpet blooms as we pass, each opening with an audible whisper of silk against silk. Their nectar attracts sphinx moths that hover like hummingbirds, their proboscis extending impossibly long tongues to reach sweetness hidden deep within pristine white throats. The interaction between flower and pollinator creates its own delicate soundtrack. The rapid wing beats forming bass notes, while feeding sounds provide gentle percussion. Crystalline formations within the volcanic rock catch and scatter moonbeams in unexpected directions, creating a subtle light show that guides our way without overwhelming night-adapted eyes. These natural prisms throw rainbow fragments across the path, brief flashes of color that appear and vanish like glimpses of another world existing just beyond perception's edge. The night air carries electromagnetic charges that make your hair stand on end with gentle static electricity, a phenomenon created by temperature differentials between rock surfaces and the flowing atmosphere above them. This invisible energy dances across exposed skin with sensations like the softest feathers drawing patterns on your arms and neck. Deep within crevices, tiny tree frogs that exist nowhere else on Earth begin their evening chorus. Their voices ring like crystal bells, tuned to frequencies that resonate with something deep in human DNA. Sounds our species heard in tropical cradles millions of years ago. Each note hangs in the still air before dissolving into silence, leaving echoes that seem to continue long after the actual sound has faded. Our path now curves toward hidden valleys, carved by streams that flow underground through lava tubes, emerging only occasionally in pools surrounded by vegetation so lush and verdant they suggest Eden itself. Here, native sedums sprawl across water-smoothed boulders, their succulent leaves storing days' warmth to release slowly through the cooler hours ahead. Wild orchids bloom in these sheltered pockets, species found only on Maui's highest elevations, where conditions create perfect combinations of moisture, altitude, and temperature. Their blossoms exhale perfume so concentrated it seems almost visible, purple clouds of fragrance that drift on currents too subtle to feel, but powerful enough to carry scent across surprising distances. Phosphorescent minerals embedded in the surrounding cliff faces begin to glow as darkness deepens, transforming ordinary stone into galleries of living art. These natural fluorescences pulse with rhythms that mirror your own heartbeat, as if the mountain itself breathes in synchrony with all life sustained within its ancient embrace. Native pitcher plants nestled among the rocks reveal their nocturnal secrets as darkness provides cover for their hunting strategies. These carnivorous beauties emit fragrances designed to attract insects, scents that register to human noses as exotic perfumes with undertones of vanilla and cinnamon. Watching them feed provides glimpses into evolutionary strategies developed over millions of years in isolation. Underground streams become audible here, their voices filtered through layers of porous volcanic stone that transform simple flowing water into complex musical arrangements. Each droplet's journey through honeycombed rock creates distinct tonal qualities, some channels producing notes high and sweet as wind chimes, others generating deeper resonances that vibrate through your bones. The path leads to thermal vents, where the Earth's internal heat creates localized tropical microclimates, even at elevation. Steam emerges from these hidden openings, carrying mineral scents that speak of deep geological processes. Sulfur softened by distance, iron oxide creating metallic tang, and stranger elements that exist only in the planet's molten core. Night-blooming vines, heavy with trumpet-shaped flowers, begin opening their evening concert. Each blossom timed to unfold at precise moments throughout the darkness ahead. Their sequence creates waves of new fragrance every few minutes. Waves that wash over you like aromatic tides, carrying exotic perfumes from botanical kingdoms that exist only in dreams. Hawaiian tree snails, endemic species found nowhere else in the universe, begin their evening activity among the leaves of native shrubs. Their shells create tiny percussion sounds as they navigate between branches, searching for algae and fungi that grow only in these specific conditions. Their presence connects this moment to prehistoric times when these mountains first emerged from Pacific depths. Above us, noctilucent clouds form at the boundary between troposphere and space, their ice crystals catching light from stars and planets to create ethereal banners flowing across the sky. These phenomena occur only at tropical latitudes, where atmospheric conditions allow such delicate formations to persist through the night hours. The stone beneath our feet now radiates warmth accumulated throughout the day, creating updrafts that lift your hair and clothing in gentle, irregular pulses. These thermal currents carry microscopic spores and seeds on journeys that might end on distant shores, making each breath part of reproductive cycles spanning entire ocean basins. Hidden waterfalls tumble through lava tubes before emerging as springs that feed pools, reflecting starlight like scattered mirrors. The water holds temperatures perfectly calibrated for human comfort, heated by geothermal processes that transform the simple act of bathing into communion with forces that shaped the Hawaiian chain across millions of years. Night fishing spiders hunt along these water margins, their legs detecting vibrations through surface tension with sensitivity that surpasses human technology. Watching them work provides meditation on precision and patience, qualities that infuse every aspect of life in these isolated island ecosystems where waste and hurry have no place. The darkness around us pulses with infrared radiation invisible to human eyes, but warming to exposed skin, creating sensation of being embraced by benevolent presence that requires nothing in return except appreciation for beauty that exists, whether witnessed or not. Our journey carries us now through groves of ancient hala trees, their prop roots creating natural archways that frame passages deeper into the island's mystical interior. These sculptural formations twist and interweave like the fingers of sleeping giants, their surfaces worn smooth by generations of passing trade winds. Beneath your palms, the bark feels cool and slightly damp, holding moisture drawn from air so pure it seems to have been filtered through layers of dreams themselves. The hollow fruits hang overhead like enormous pine cones crafted from burnished gold, their segments fitted together with mathematical precision that speaks of nature's hidden geometries. When ripe ones occasionally fall, they strike the earth with soft thuds that release bursts of tropical sweetness. Pineapple notes woven through something more complex and mysterious. A fragrance that indigenous healers once used to induce visions of ancestral wisdom. Threading between these natural pillars, we encounter patches of native peely grass that grows in flowing waves across gentle slopes. Each blade catches available light and transforms it into subtle luminescence, creating carpets that seem woven from moonbeams and shadow. Walking through these natural meadows produces whispered conversations between your legs and the vegetation, soft, rustling sounds that blend into the evening's expanding symphony. Scattered throughout this landscape, volcanic bombs rest where they fell during ancient eruptions. Perfectly spherical stones that cooled while spinning through superheated air. These geological artifacts hold temperatures that fluctuate independently of their surroundings, sometimes cool as river rocks, other times warm as sun-baked clay. Their thermal variations creating their own weather patterns in miniature. Night herons wade through shallow pools fed by underground springs, their movements so fluid they seem to flow rather than walk. These elegant hunters pause between steps for long moments, becoming living statues that blur the boundary between animate and eternal. Their occasional calls pierce the darkness with notes both wild and lonely. Voices that carry across vast distances before dissolving into silence that feels even more profound than before. Passion vines drape themselves across natural trellises formed by native shrubs, their tendrils exploring surfaces with sensitivity that rivals human touch. In darkness, their flowers emit clicking sounds almost too subtle to hear, the acoustic signature of nocturnal pollination, as specialized insects navigate by echolocation through botanical mazes designed specifically for their needs. We follow now a channel carved by ancient lava flows, its walls rising on either side like the pages of an open book written in stone. The passage narrows and widens unpredictably, creating acoustic chambers where footsteps multiply into rhythmic conversations between past and present. Some sections focus sound so intensely that heartbeats become audible, while others scatter voices into whispered echoes that seem to originate from everywhere and nowhere at once. Delicate air plants cling to vertical surfaces here, drawing sustenance entirely from moisture and nutrients carried by passing breezes. Their roots form intricate patterns across the rock faces, creating living tapestries that shift color as atmospheric conditions change throughout the night. Some species glow faintly with stored sunlight, adding subtle illumination to guide our passage through this natural corridor. The channel opens suddenly into an amphitheater where hot springs bubble up through cracks in the bedrock, their mineral-rich waters creating terraces of deposited calcium that step down like frozen waterfalls, painted in cream and rose. Steam rises from these natural jacuzzis in spirals that carry the earthy perfume of deep geological processes mixed with something cleaner. Ozone created where heated water meets cool air in perpetual chemical dance. Native damselflies patrol the margins of these thermal pools, their wings creating interference patterns in the rising mist that transform water vapor into prismatic displays, visible only from certain angles. These insects move with purposeful grace, their flight paths tracing invisible geometries through air that shimmers with heat and possibility. Underground chambers reveal themselves through openings that exhale currents of air carrying scents from hidden ecosystems thriving in perpetual twilight. These subterranean gardens nurture species that have evolved in isolation for millennia. Their fragrances, unlike anything that grows beneath open sky, mushroom earthiness blended with floral notes that seem almost artificial in their perfection. Tree roots extend down through ceiling cracks into these buried worlds, creating living pillars that pulse gently with the movement of nutrients flowing between surface and depth. Touching these natural conduits allows you to feel the island's circulation system directly. The slow rhythm of minerals and water traveling pathways established over geological time scales. Clusters of native begonias bloom in alcoves where conditions remain stable year-round, their waxy petals reflecting available light with mirror-like intensity. These flowers produce nectar with properties that affect human consciousness subtly but noticeably. A mild euphoria that enhances appreciation for beauty while quieting internal dialogue that normally chatters through waking hours. The thermal activity creates updrafts that lift native seeds and spores in helical patterns, carrying genetic material on journeys that connect this hidden valley to ecosystems across the entire island chain. Breathing becomes participation in these reproductive cycles, each inhalation potentially drawing plant essence into lungs that serve temporarily as vessels for botanical dreams. Lichens coating the chamber walls exhibit bioluminescence, triggered by changes in humidity and temperature, their faint radiance pulsing in response to our presence, like living mood rings. These composite organisms represent partnerships between fungi and algae, so ancient and successful they predate most other life forms. They're glowing reminders that cooperation often succeeds where competition fails. Native cave spiders weave webs that catch more than insects. Their silk intercepts water droplets, pollen grains, and microscopic particles that reveal atmospheric stories. Watching them work provides lessons in patience and precision. Their movements economical yet graceful, as they maintain structures both functional and beautiful. The springs themselves hold temperatures that vary across their surfaces, creating thermal layers that feel distinctly different as you move through the water. Some areas pulse with warmth that penetrates deep into muscle tissue, while others remain cool enough to invigorate circulation and sharpen awareness of subtle environmental changes occurring throughout the night. Mineral deposits around the pool edges grow in patterns that mirror organic forms, some resembling coral formations, others suggesting frozen flames or crystallized music. These geological sculptures continue changing imperceptibly, their growth occurring too slowly for human perception, yet fast enough to document the Earth's creative processes in real time. Native freshwater shrimp inhabit the calmer backwaters of these springs, their translucent bodies nearly invisible, except when light catches them at perfect angles. These tiny crustaceans serve as indicators of water purity, their presence confirming that the springs emerge from sources deep enough to remain uncontaminated by surface influences. Night-flying beetles attracted to thermal updrafts create clicking symphonies as they navigate between warm and cool air masses, their flight patterns describing invisible topography mapped by temperature differentials too subtle for human detection. Their presence adds percussive elements to the evening's soundtrack while demonstrating navigation techniques that surpass technological understanding. Steam condenses on surrounding vegetation in quantities sufficient to sustain plant communities that exist nowhere else, creating hanging gardens watered by geological processes rather than rainfall. These aerial ecosystems develop their own ecological relationships independent of terrestrial systems, floating worlds connected to Earth only by rising mist and falling condensation. Our path continues deeper into landscapes where isolation has allowed evolution to experiment with forms found nowhere else in the Pacific. Each discovery confirming that paradise contains mysteries still revealing themselves to those patient enough to listen with more than ears, to see with more than eyes. The crystalline notes of native Hawaiian crickets begin their vespers as we emerge from the thermal gardens onto a plateau where ancient Hawaiians once cultivated terraces that still hold the memory of their careful hands. Here, ghost varieties of taro send up shoots that shimmer with an opalescent quality in starlight. Their heart-shaped leaves collecting dew that tastes faintly of honey and sea salt. The abandoned agricultural plots create a checkerboard of textures underfoot. Some areas soft with accumulated leaf mold, others firm with clay that retains the impressions of our passage like pages in an earthen diary. Overhead, the Southern Cross appears with startling clarity. Its 4 bright stars forming a celestial compass that guided Polynesian navigators across thousands of miles of open ocean to discover these volcanic peaks. The constellation seems to pulse with ancient wisdom, each twinkle a Morse code message transmitted across space and time, carrying stories of courage and discovery that resonate in the blood of anyone who has ever yearned for distant horizons. Wild coffee plants thrive in these elevated clearings, their cherry red berries releasing aromatherapeutic compounds that sharpen night vision while inducing a gentle alertness perfectly suited for nocturnal exploration. The beans rattle softly within their husks when brushed by passing breezes, creating maracas of organic music that accompanies our footsteps across terrain that rises and falls like a slow-breathing chest. Lava tubes stretch beneath our feet, their hollow spaces creating natural echo chambers that amplify and transform the smallest sounds into otherworldly compositions. When we pause to listen, our heartbeats multiply and harmonize through these subterranean concert halls, while overhead fruit bats navigate by echolocation that adds ultrasonic percussion to frequencies only partially audible to human ears. The plateau edges drop away into canyons carved by flash floods that occur perhaps once in a generation. Their vertical walls, painted in stripes of rust, gold, and deep purple, where different mineral deposits tell the story of volcanic episodes spanning millions of years. These geological murals catch and reflect moonlight in ways that create depth illusions, making the chasms appear simultaneously infinite and intimate. Pockets of native sedge grass release spores that drift on air currents like microscopic dandelion seeds, each one carrying genetic codes perfected through countless generations of adaptation to these specific conditions. Inhaling brings participation in evolutionary processes still occurring around us, the very act of breathing becoming collaboration with forces that shaped life itself. Night-blooming cacti reveal their hidden abundance as darkness provides cover for for their water conservation strategies. Their paddle-shaped segments storing moisture in cellular reservoirs that feel surprisingly plump and cool when touched. Some varieties produce flowers that open with clockwork precision throughout the evening hours, their blooming sequence timed to coincide with the activity patterns of their specialized pollinators. Thermal inversions create layers of air at different temperatures, allowing us to experience distinct climate zones simply by raising or lowering our hands. These invisible boundaries shift and flow like liquid, occasionally bringing warm updrafts that carry the day's accumulated fragrances from lower elevations, followed by cool downdrafts bearing the crystalline scents of high altitude and thin atmosphere. Native Hawaiian mint carpets shaded areas beneath overhanging rocks, its leaves releasing menthol vapors when crushed underfoot that clear sinuses and sharpen awareness of subtle environmental changes occurring as the island transitions through its nightly cycles. The sensation penetrates clothing to stimulate circulation while providing natural aromatherapy that calms nervous systems stressed by modern life's constant demands. Rare native violets bloom in crevices where wind-blown soil has accumulated over centuries. Their petals so dark they absorb light rather than reflecting it, creating flowers that seem cut from velvet midnight itself. These botanical treasures emit fragrances that trigger synesthetic experiences, scents that somehow translate into colors visible behind closed eyelids, purples and indigos that swirl like aurora borealis, made intimate and personal. The footpath meanders through stands of native willy-willy trees, their coral-colored seeds scattered across the ground like forgotten jewelry from some giant's treasure box. These lightweight pods produce subtle rattling sounds when stirred by night breezes, adding natural percussion to the evening's expanding orchestra, while their hollow chambers create tiny echo effects that multiply and layer into complex rhythmic patterns. Phosphorescent algae growing in temporary pools left by recent rains begin glowing as temperatures drop, their blue-green radiance creating natural runway lights that guide our passage through terrain that shifts between familiar and fantastical. With each changing perspective, these organisms respond to pressure by intensifying their luminescence, leaving glowing footprints that fade slowly behind us like breadcrumbs made of captured starlight. Underground streams become more audible as night deepens and ambient sound levels drop, their liquid voices filtered through countless layers of porous volcanic rock that transform simple flowing water into complex musical compositions. Some channels produce sounds reminiscent of whale songs. Others create percussion that mimics traditional Hawaiian drumming, all of it emanating from sources invisible yet undeniably present. Wild ginger plants thriving in moisture-rich pockets release aromatic compounds that shift and change throughout the night, their chemical signatures responding to temperature fluctuations and humidity levels in ways that create ever-evolving perfume compositions. Breathing becomes a form of natural aromatherapy that induces progressively deeper states of relaxation and receptivity to the island's subtle influences. Native tree snails continue their ancient migrations along pathways inherited through genetic memory, their iridescent shells catching fragments of available light to create moving constellations at eye level. These endemic species exist nowhere else in the universe, their presence connecting this moment to prehistoric times when these volcanic peaks first emerged from Pacific depths to begin their slow dance with wind, rain, and life itself. The terrain opens now onto meadows where native bunch grass grows in patterns that suggest intentional landscaping. Though no human hand has touched these arrangements for generations, the natural geometry creates visual rhythms that soothe minds accustomed to chaotic urban environments, while the grass itself releases oxygen in quantities that make each breath more satisfying than the last. We approach now the edge of consciousness itself, where the boundary between waking awareness and dream state begins dissolving like sugar in warm rain, carrying us deeper into Maui's nocturnal embrace, where healing occurs without effort and peace arrives as naturally as breathing itself. A gentle slope carries us toward groves of native koa trees, whose bark patterns tell stories in braille-like ridges that respond to fingertips with surprising warmth. These ancient giants shelter colonies of Hawaiian hoary bats, whose wing membranes translate moonlight into moving shadows that dance across silver-barked trunks like calligraphy written in an alphabet of darkness and illumination. The bat's presence registers as subtle shifts in air pressure, tiny atmospheric signatures that brush against cheeks with the delicacy of moth wings. Beneath these towering sentinels, native ferns unfurl their crosiers in slow motion spirals that seem to capture time itself, each frond emerging with mathematical precision that demonstrates nature's inherent understanding of golden ratios and sacred geometry. Their surfaces collect night moisture in patterns that channel water droplets along predetermined pathways, creating miniature irrigation systems that have operated flawlessly for millennia without maintenance or supervision. The forest floor yields beneath our feet with the springiness of natural carpeting, woven from centuries of fallen leaves, seed pods, and organic matter that that has composted into soil. So rich, it seems almost edible. Each step releases tiny puffs of earth-scented air that carry spores and microscopic seeds on journeys that might span decades before finding suitable germination sites in distant corners of the island. Somewhere in the canopy above, native Hawaiian owls exchange territorial calls that slice through darkness with razor precision, their voices carrying frequencies that seem designed to resonate with human bone structure in ways that create physical awareness of sound rather than mere auditory perception. These phantom hunters move through branches with silence so complete they seem to teleport rather than fly. Their presence detectable only through the brief pauses they create in the ambient forest symphony. Wild vanilla orchids climb toward starlight on stems, so delicate they seem constructed from crystallized moonbeams. Their tendrils exploring bark surfaces with sensitivity that surpasses human touch. When their flowers finally open, they exhale perfume so concentrated it becomes almost visible, creating aromatic halos that drift on air currents like ghosts of sweetness seeking communion with receptive consciousness. The path curves through a natural amphitheater where ancient lava flows created stone seating arranged in semicircles that suggest some cosmic architect designed this space for gatherings that transcend ordinary human purposes. Here, acoustics focus and amplify the gentlest whispers while transforming involuntary sighs into musical phrases that harmonize with frequencies generated by cooling volcanic rock. Rare native lobelia plants emerge from cracks in these natural bleachers, their sword-shaped leaves radiating from central cores like botanical fireworks, frozen at the moment of explosion. Their flowers, when they appear, glow with bioluminescent properties that activate only during specific lunar phases, creating calendar systems understood by indigenous creatures whose life cycles synchronize with celestial rhythms spanning generations. Night-flying insects navigate between these luminous beacons, using polarized light detection that reveals patterns invisible to vertebrate eyes. Their flight paths tracing geometric designs that would challenge human mathematicians to replicate. Their wing scales shed microscopic particles that drift on thermal currents, carrying pheromone messages across distances that connect isolated populations through chemical conversations conducted entirely in darkness. We descend now through volcanic cinder fields, where each footstep produces soft, crunching sounds that multiply through underground cavities, creating percussion sections that seem to emanate from the planet's interior rather than from surface interactions. These natural instruments respond to our movement by generating rhythms that synchronize with heartbeats, breathing patterns, and other biological cycles in ways that induce meditative states without conscious effort. Patches of native strawberry plants hide among the cinders, their white flowers glowing like terrestrial stars against dark volcanic sand that holds daytime heat in cellular pockets throughout the cooler night hours. The berries, smaller than their mainland cousins, concentrate flavors that seem impossible in their intensity. Sweetness layered with mineral undertones that speak of soil chemistry perfected through volcanic processes spanning geological epochs. Steam vents scattered throughout this landscape exhale moisture that carries trace elements from deep earth chemistry, creating microclimates where endemic plants thrive in conditions found nowhere else in the Pacific Basin. These natural humidifiers maintain atmospheric moisture levels that make breathing feel effortless, while providing aromatherapy treatments that occur automatically with each inhalation. Native Hawaiian sedums spread across lava surfaces in living carpets that demonstrate nature's ability to transform lifeless rock into thriving ecosystems through patience and persistence. Their succulent leaves store not just water, but also minerals that create natural batteries, generating mild electrical fields that interact with human biorhythms in ways that promote cellular regeneration and deep tissue relaxation. The volcanic landscape opens onto hidden lakes formed in calderas, where rainwater accumulates in volumes sufficient to support aquatic ecosystems that exist in isolation from ocean influences. These high-altitude bodies of water maintain temperatures that fluctuate independently of air temperature, creating their own weather systems complete with localized fog banks that drift across the surface like spirits seeking redemption. Native water birds that migrate here only during specific seasons create ripples that spread in perfect concentric circles, each wave carrying bioluminescent organisms that transform simple water movement into light shows, visible only to those fortunate enough to witness these hidden sanctuaries during their brief moments of activation. The birds themselves seem aware of their role as conductors in these organic orchestras, their movements timed to maximize the visual displays they generate. Mineral deposits around these crater lakes form natural sculptures that continue growing imperceptibly, their crystalline structures catching and refracting available light in ways that create rainbow effects even in near total darkness. These geological artworks pulse with colors that shift through spectra invisible to normal vision, requiring relaxed awareness and peripheral perception to appreciate their full beauty. Wild hibiscus varieties bloom along the shorelines with flowers that open and close according to barometric pressure changes. Their petals serving as natural weather prediction systems that respond to atmospheric conditions hours before human instruments detect approaching changes. Their colors intensify during periods of optimal humidity, creating displays that rival any cultivated garden, while requiring no human intervention to maintain their perfection. As dawn approaches with the inevitability of tide changes, the eastern horizon begins showing the faintest suggestion of color change. Not yet light, but rather the absence of complete darkness, gradually giving way to possibility itself. Stars fade with reluctance, their brightness dimming incrementally, as if unwilling to surrender the stage to solar radiance that will soon transform this mystical landscape back into the paradise that awaits our return to waking consciousness. Our journey draws toward its natural conclusion as night's embrace slowly loosens, carrying us back toward the gentle shores where dreams and reality merge like streams, flowing toward the eternal ocean that connects all islands, all moments, all souls who have ever found peace in Maui's timeless sanctuary. The pre-dawn hours reveal textures in darkness that daylight conceals, as volcanic glass embedded in ancient flows begins resonating with frequencies too low for conscious hearing, yet perfectly calibrated to synchronize with the deepest rhythms of human sleep cycles. These obsidian fragments vibrate in harmony with our footsteps, creating subsonic lullabies that penetrate bone and muscle to reach places where tension dissolves before awareness even registers its presence. Native Hawaiian rushes sway in coordinated movements that suggest underwater currents flowing through terrestrial space, their hollow stems conducting air pressure changes into whispered conversations between earth and atmosphere. Each plant responds to our passage by releasing microscopic bursts of negative ions that neutralize the electromagnetic static accumulated from artificial environments, cleansing cellular structures with the efficiency of nature's own purification systems. Tide pools carved into elevated plateaus by ancient tsunamis hold captive oceans in miniature, their saline contents warmed by residual volcanic heat until they achieve temperatures that mirror human body warmth exactly. Dipping fingers into these natural hot tubs reveals water so perfectly calibrated for comfort that the boundary between self and environment disappears entirely, dissolved into liquid unity that speaks of connections predating the evolution of individual consciousness. Dormant volcanic vents exhale trace gases that induce mild euphoria without any sensation of intoxication. Their chemical signatures triggering endorphin production through pathways that bypass rational thought to access ancient mammalian responses, programmed for recognizing safe sanctuary. Breathing becomes voluntary meditation, as each inhalation delivers molecules that have circulated through the planet's interior for millions of years before emerging into our temporary custody. Sleep-inducing alkaloids drift from native poppy relatives that bloom exclusively during the hours when human consciousness naturally seeks rest. Their airborne compounds working in concert with circadian rhythms to deepen whatever drowsiness already exists. These botanical hypnotists require no direct contact to exert their influence, operating through atmospheric chemistry that transforms simple breathing into participation in evolutionary relationships older than human civilization. Crystalline formations within hardened lava tubes create natural wind harps that respond to the slightest air movement with harmonics pitched below the threshold of conscious perception, yet perfectly positioned to encourage brainwave entrainment toward delta frequencies associated with the most restorative phases of sleep. The mountain itself becomes a musical instrument played by forces beyond human control. Its melodies designed by physics rather than intention, yet achieving effects that surpass any composed lullaby. Native sedge varieties growing in spiral patterns around these resonant chambers release volatile compounds that affect neurotransmitter production in ways that promote vivid dreaming while maintaining awareness of complete safety. Their presence creates pharmacological gardens where simply walking through activated areas triggers biochemical cascades that prepare consciousness for journeys beyond ordinary sensory limitations. Patches of volcanic sand retain heat in grain-sized pockets that create walking surfaces with therapeutic properties rivaling expensive spa treatments. Each step providing acupressure stimulation to reflex points connected with organs throughout the body. The ground itself becomes healing partner, offering restoration through contact so gentle it operates below the threshold of active attention while working systematically to release accumulated stress from every pressure point. Ancient petroglyph sites carved into lava rock emit electromagnetic fields measurable by sensitive instruments, yet perceivable by human nervous systems as subtle tingling sensations that seem to communicate meanings beyond verbal translation. These prehistoric messages continue broadcasting their stories through frequencies that bypass language centers to stimulate areas of consciousness, associated with inherited memory and species-wide knowledge. Wild passionflower vines, indigenous to these elevations, produce fruits that taste of concentrated moonlight mixed with substances that exist nowhere else in the natural world. Their flavors triggering synesthetic experiences where taste becomes color, texture transforms into music, and simple eating evolves into multidimensional sensory symphonies that stretch perception beyond ordinary categorical boundaries. Night-flying seeds, equipped with natural parachutes, drift past like tiny messengers, carrying genetic information between plant communities separated by impossible distances. Their journeys demonstrating faith in processes that operate across time scales measured in decades rather than moments. Watching their passage provides lessons in patience and trust, while illustrating biological systems that function through cooperation rather than competition. Magnetic anomalies created by iron-rich volcanic deposits influence compass readings in ways that create natural navigation challenges, forcing reliance on internal guidance systems that connect with planetary magnetic fields through mechanisms science is only beginning to understand. These geological quirks awaken dormant capacities for direction finding that bypass technological dependence to access older, more reliable methods of orientation. Springs emerging from underground rivers maintain consistent temperatures regardless of seasonal variations. Their thermal stability creating aquatic environments where endemic fish species thrive in conditions that have remained unchanged since these islands first emerged from oceanic depths. Swimming with these ancient inhabitants provides communion with evolutionary processes still occurring in real time. Native berries ripen according to lunar cycles rather than solar seasons. Their purple-black skins containing anthocyanins that improve night vision while providing antioxidants in concentrations that seem designed specifically for human physiology. Eating them creates temporary enhancement of sensory acuity that allows perception of details normally invisible, as if the island itself provides tools necessary for appreciating its more subtle beauties. Thermal springs bubble up through coral formations that grew when sea levels stood higher than current measurements. Their mineral content creating effervescent bathing experiences that feel like soaking in naturally carbonated healing waters. The sensation penetrates deep into joint spaces and muscle fibers, providing relief from tensions so ancient they may have preceded conscious recognition of their existence. Wild coffee varieties growing at these elevations produce beans with caffeine structures modified by altitude and atmospheric pressure, into compounds that enhance relaxation rather than stimulation. Their chemistry, altered by environmental conditions, into natural sedatives. That taste of earth and starlight combined into liquid form. Chewing the raw berries releases oils that promote the kind of alertness associated with dreaming rather than waking consciousness. Native pitcher plants capture more than insects in their specialized chambers, collecting rainwater that concentrates minerals into natural electrolyte solutions, perfectly balanced for human cellular needs. Drinking from these botanical vessels provides hydration that seems to penetrate deeper than ordinary water, carrying trace elements directly to tissues that have been waiting unknowingly for precisely these combinations of nutrients. Underground chambers carved by gas bubbles in cooling lava create meditation spaces where acoustic properties induce automatic entry into altered states of consciousness through resonance frequencies that synchronize brain waves with geological rhythms operating on temporal scales spanning millennia. Simply sitting in these natural cathedrals triggers neurological responses that bypass voluntary effort to achieve profound states of inner stillness. The approaching dawn brings with it breezes carrying salt crystals from waves breaking against distant shores, their microscopic geometry refracting first light into prismatic displays that paint the air itself with rainbow fragments, too ephemeral to photograph, yet permanent enough to embed themselves in memory as proof that paradise exists in moments willing to receive it completely. Our nocturnal journey continues its gentle spiral toward rest, carrying us deeper into the island's embracing silence, where sleep arrives as naturally as breathing itself. Dewdrops gather on spider silk, stretched between branches of native ohelo shrubs, each strand transformed into chains of liquid diamonds that tremble with frequencies too delicate for anything but hummingbird wings to detect. These natural jewelry displays catch the earliest hints of morning light and scatter them into miniature auroras that dance across surfaces still cool from night's gentle touch, creating light shows measured in heartbeats rather than hours. Wild Hawaiian cotton bowls split open with sounds like whispered secrets being shared, releasing fibers that drift upward on thermal currents so slight they register only as the faintest caress against upturned palms. These natural parachutes carry seeds on journeys that might span entire valleys before finding purchase in volcanic crevices, where new generations will take root in soil born from fire and time. Rare native honey creepers flit between blossoms that exist only at these elevations, their curved beaks perfectly matched to flower shapes that evolved together across countless seasons of mutual dependence. Their wing beats create pressure waves that massage the air itself, each flutter adding percussion to morning's awakening symphony, while their bright feathers catch scattered light like flying jewels, celebrating the transition between darkness and dawn. Ancient fish ponds constructed by Polynesian settlers reflect sky colors in waters so still they mirror clouds with perfect clarity, creating the illusion that heaven and earth occupy the same space in defiance of physical laws. Koi descendants introduced generations ago navigate these liquid mirrors with movements so fluid they seem choreographed. Their orange and gold bodies writing poetry in a language composed entirely of graceful curves and ripples. Native Hawaiian mint varieties carpet the margins of these constructed wetlands, their leaves releasing cooling vapors that provide natural air conditioning through evaporation processes that lower surrounding temperatures by several degrees. Walking through these aromatic meadows triggers immediate respiratory responses as menthol compounds clear pathways while simultaneously calming nervous systems through chemical interactions perfected across evolutionary time. Fossilized coral formations embedded in elevated limestone platforms tell stories of ancient sea levels through calcium carbonate sculptures that preserve the exact shapes of marine organisms from epochs when these mountains stood beneath Pacific waves. Running fingertips across these natural museums reveals textures that connect present moments with prehistoric oceans, their surfaces worn smooth by millions of years of weather into tactile libraries readable through touch alone. Night-blooming epiphytes begin closing their trumpet flowers as atmospheric pressure changes signal approaching sunrise. Their petals folding inward according to genetic programming that responds to barometric variations more sensitive than any human-made instrument. This botanical choreography occurs with mechanical precision, yet organic grace, creating time-lapse performances visible to observers patient enough to witness nature's most subtle transitions. Thermal updrafts from volcanic soil carry microscopic particles of black sand that sparkle briefly in pre-dawn light before settling onto skin with the gentleness of powdered silk. Each grain warm from its journey through air, heated by residual geological activity. These volcanic cosmetics provide natural exfoliation while delivering trace minerals through dermal absorption, transforming simple walking into inadvertent spa treatments administered by the island itself. Endemic Hawaiian tree crickets adjust their chirping frequencies as temperature fluctuations signal the approaching end of their nocturnal concert. Their rate of calls slowing measurably as metabolic processes respond to cooling air that carries the promise of daylight still hours away. These living metronomes provide soundtrack adjustments perfectly calibrated to human circadian rhythms seeking synchronization with natural cycles. Wild guava fruits hang heavy on branches that bow under their weight, releasing fragrances that intensify during the coolest hours when volatile compounds concentrate rather than dispersing into heated air. Their perfume carries notes of rose petals mixed with substances that exist nowhere else, creating olfactory experiences that trigger memory centers associated with safety and nurture rather than specific recollections. Native Hawaiian violets growing in moss-covered alcoves produce flowers so small they require close examination to appreciate their intricate construction. Yet, their collective impact creates purple carpets that seem to glow with internal light sources. These miniature masterpieces demonstrate nature's attention to details that might never receive conscious appreciation, their beauty existing for its own sake rather than for any utilitarian purpose. Artesian wells bubble up through natural openings in bedrock, with pressure sufficient to create small fountains that spray crystalline water in arcs that catch and scatter available light into prismatic displays lasting only seconds before gravity reclaims the droplets. The water tastes of minerals that have no names in common language, their flavors speaking of deep earth chemistry filtered through stone layers that strip away everything except essential purity. Colonies of native Hawaiian damselflies patrol territories marked by invisible boundaries, understood through pheromone communications that operate below human sensory thresholds. Their iridescent wings creating interference patterns in morning mist that transform water vapor into brief rainbow effects. These aerial dancers perform mating flights that trace geometric patterns precise enough to serve as natural compasses for observers able to read their choreographed messages. Wild macadamia ancestors drop nuts that require specific combinations of pressure and technique to crack. Their shells designed by evolution to protect contents from all threats except the most persistent and intelligent predators. The meat inside tastes nothing like commercial varieties, carrying flavors that suggest vanilla beans crossed with substances that exist only in dream states. Their oils coating the mouth with richness that lingers long after swallowing. Sections of coastline visible from elevated positions show phosphorescent wave action, where bioluminescent organisms create natural light shows triggered by mechanical disturbance. Their blue-green radiance painting advancing and retreating waters, with colors that seem borrowed from alien worlds. These living fireworks operate on cellular level, but achieve effects visible from impossible distances. Their collective brilliance, proving that microscopic cooperation can illuminate entire seascapes. Native Hawaiian sedges, growing in seasonal wetlands, release seeds, equipped with flotation devices that allow them to colonize distant pools during brief periods when conditions support aquatic dispersal. These botanical voyagers demonstrate faith in processes requiring perfect timing and favorable circumstances. Their survival strategies depending on variables beyond any individual plant's control, yet somehow succeeding across generations. As consciousness drifts, like those floating seeds, toward the quiet pools of deep sleep, the island's gentle rhythms continue their eternal circulation, carrying every breath deeper into Maui's peaceful embrace, where rest arrives with the certainty of tides and the softness of trade winds, whispering ancient lullabies through valleys that cradle dreams until morning light returns to paint new stories across volcanic landscapes that hold infinity within their timeless shores. Subterranean caverns accessible through narrow passages reveal chambers where Hawaiian ancestors stored precious water during drought cycles. Their carved reservoirs still holding liquid that tastes of centuries, yet maintains perfect clarity through filtration systems designed by indigenous engineering wisdom. These hidden cisterns create their own climate zones, where humidity levels remain constant regardless of surface weather patterns, establishing sanctuaries where rare ferns flourish in conditions that replicate primordial Earth atmospheres. Sections of ancient coral reef, now elevated above sea level, form natural bridges spanning gorges carved by flash floods that occur perhaps once per generation. Their limestone arches worn into curves that follow mathematical principles governing structural integrity across geological time periods. Walking across these organic suspension bridges provides views into canyons where waterfalls appear and vanish according to seasonal rainfall patterns. Their temporary existence proving that even mountains dream in cycles of abundance and scarcity. Native Hawaiian gourds grow wild in protected valleys, their shells developing walls thick enough to serve as natural percussion instruments when dried by trade winds that cure them into resonant chambers. Indigenous peoples once used these organic drums for ceremonial communications, their hollow bodies producing bass frequencies that carried across island distances to connect communities separated by terrain too rugged for easy travel. The abandoned vines still fruit according to ancestral schedules, their biological clocks maintaining rhythms established before human contact. Pools of collected rainwater in volcanic depressions support communities of endemic fairy shrimp, whose translucent bodies become visible only when sunlight penetrates their temporary aquatic worlds at specific angles throughout the day. These ephemeral creatures complete entire life cycles during brief windows when conditions align perfectly. Their existence demonstrating nature's ability to maximize opportunity within the narrowest temporal margins. Their movements create microscopic currents that generate surface patterns resembling living mandalas. Wild taro varieties grow in terraces abandoned by farmers generations ago, their heart-shaped leaves now responding only to natural irrigation from streams that shift course according to volcanic activity and seasonal precipitation. These heritage plants contain genetic information predating Polynesian settlement, their cellular memory preserving agricultural wisdom developed across Pacific islands through centuries of careful cultivation and selection for traits that ensured survival in isolated island ecosystems. Native Hawaiian raspberries ripen in thickets that grow along ridge lines where trade winds concentrate moisture into conditions perfect for berry production. Their fruit developing flavors that combine tartness with floral undertones, suggesting rose hips crossed with substances that bloom only in mountain air. The thorny canes provide nesting sites for endemic songbirds, whose calls incorporate raspberry patch acoustics into territorial songs that echo across valleys with phrases unique to each location. Lava tubes large enough to walk through create underground highways connecting different elevation zones. Their smooth walls, polished by molten rock, flows into surfaces that feel like ceramic glazed by planetary forces. These natural tunnels maintain temperatures that fluctuate minimally throughout annual cycles, providing climate-controlled corridors where endemic bats hibernate during periods when surface conditions become challenging for creatures adapted to specific atmospheric requirements. Wild coffee shrubs growing in volcanic soil produce beans with caffeine content modified by mineral absorption into compounds that affect human consciousness differently than commercial varieties. Their chemical structure altered by trace elements available only in substrates created by specific types of volcanic activity. Chewing fresh berries releases oils that promote lucid dreaming states while maintaining awareness of physical comfort and safety. Native Hawaiian strawberry, guava trees fruit according to lunar phases rather than solar seasons. Their yellow orbs containing seeds that require passage through bird digestive systems before achieving germination capability. This biological partnership demonstrates evolutionary relationships where plant reproduction depends entirely on animal cooperation, creating ecosystems where independence becomes impossible and survival requires community participation across species boundaries. Sections of hardened lava contain gas bubbles that trapped atmospheric samples from ancient eruptions. Their sealed chambers preserving air compositions from periods when climate conditions differed significantly from current measurements. Breaking open these geological time capsules releases gases that smell of prehistoric atmospheres, providing olfactory glimpses into planetary chemistry from epochs when volcanic activity shaped weather patterns across entire ocean basins. Endemic Hawaiian moths navigate by polarized moonlight, using wing scales that function as natural polarizing filters. Their flight patterns revealing celestial information invisible to vertebrate visual systems. These nocturnal pollinators visit flowers that bloom exclusively during specific lunar phases, creating reproductive cycles synchronized with cosmic rhythms that operate independently of terrestrial seasonal variations. Wild passion fruit vines climb toward canopy levels on tendrils that explore three-dimensional space with sensitivity exceeding human tactile discrimination. Their searching appendages able to distinguish between different bark textures to locate optimal climbing surfaces. The fruits they eventually produce contain seeds surrounded by pulp that tastes of concentrated sunshine mixed with atmospheric elements that exist only at canopy height, where photosynthesis occurs under different light conditions than ground-level processes. Rare native lobelia varieties growing in cliff face crevices develop root systems that penetrate rock fissures to access groundwater flowing through underground channels. Their specialized anatomy allowing survival in vertical environments where soil accumulation remains impossible. These botanical mountaineers produce flowers that extend on stalks reaching toward optimal light exposure, while maintaining root contact with hidden water sources that may flow dozens of feet below visible surface levels. Traditional Hawaiian healing springs bubble up through limestone formations that filter mineral content into combinations specifically therapeutic for human physiology. Their chemical compositions varying subtly between different emergence points to address various health conditions through targeted trace element delivery. Indigenous healers once prescribed specific springs for particular ailments. Their knowledge, based on generations of observation, regarding which mineral profiles produced optimal results for different constitutional types. Native tree ferns unfurl fronds in spiral patterns that follow Fibonacci sequences. Their mathematical precision demonstrating natural understanding of growth patterns that maximize surface area while minimizing structural material requirements. These organic architects create microenvironments beneath their canopies where temperature and humidity levels remain stable enough to support species that cannot tolerate direct exposure to trade wind desiccation or intense solar radiation. Sleep approaches now like morning mist rising from hidden valleys, carrying consciousness gently downward into the peaceful depths, where Maui's eternal rhythms continue their ancient circulation through landscapes that exist as much in dreams as in geological reality. Their healing presence available to every soul willing to surrender completely to the island's timeless embrace. Hidden valleys, accessible only through narrow slot canyons, reveal themselves as dawn's first whisper touches volcanic peaks. Their secluded floors, carpeted with native bunch grass that grows in perfect circles like green mandalas scattered by patient earth spirits. These natural sanctuaries hold silence so complete it possesses texture, wrapping around visitors like cashmere woven from concentrated tranquility. Forgotten fish ponds reflect sky in waters undisturbed by anything larger than water striders, whose delicate steps create expanding rings that carry wishes across liquid mirrors toward distant shores. Ancient stone walls still regulate water flow according to engineering principles developed by Hawaiian ancestors who understood tidal patterns with mathematical precision that surpasses modern calculations. Native bog orchids emerge from sphagnum moss beds that cushion footsteps with the yielding softness of natural memory foam. Their ivory petals unfurling to release perfume that smells of vanilla beans dissolved in morning dew. These fragile masterpieces bloom for mere hours before releasing seeds that drift on imperceptible air currents toward unknown destinations where future gardens await their genetic gifts. Tide pools carved into elevated platforms by prehistoric storms harbor miniature underwater forests where native seaweeds sway in rhythms that mirror deeper ocean currents, their movements hypnotic as meditation mantras made visible through aquatic choreography. Hermit crabs navigate between coral formations with purposeful wandering that demonstrates how exploration and rest can coexist in perfect balance. Wild sugarcane stands abandoned in terraces where Polynesian farmers once cultivated sweetness from volcanic soil. Their hollow stalks now serving as natural wind instruments that produce haunting melodies. When trade winds discover the precise angles necessary for transformation of simple air movement into music, these organic flutes sing lullabies composed by atmospheric pressure changes and thermal dynamics operating beyond human control. As consciousness settles like settling volcanic ash into the quiet spaces between thoughts, Maui's infinite gentleness continues its eternal circulation through coral gardens and cloud forests, carrying each breath deeper into the island's patient embrace. Here, where time moves with the unhurried grace of growing bamboo and dreams crystallize like morning dew on spider silk, sleep arrives naturally as breathing itself, soft and inevitable as trade winds carrying souls toward peaceful harbors where rest awaits with open arms beneath stars that remember every prayer whispered into tropical darkness.